Hello, my name is Mark Steck, and I'm going to show you and introduce you to a process of cleaning skulls that is unlike any other in terms of these chemicals you use. In this video, we're going to show you how we take a skull that's got the brains and the meat and everything in it, and we take it down to a beautiful specimen like this. And so this video is going to be about 20 minutes long. We're going to take you through the process, and you're going to become an expert at it in no time. This is the Wiebe skull cleaning kit. There is nothing like it anywhere on the planet. And the reason I say that is typically skull cleaning involves caustic type materials, chemicals such as peroxide. These chemicals are not that. They're anything but that. And these are patented chemical. They are not toxic, they are not hazardous, and the company that made these uses them for another product, and they have blended them and altered them just a little bit for us. And so Wiebe, if it doesn't say Wiebe, you don't have this product. And so over the next 20 minutes, you're going to see Ryan, our expert in skulls. He's going to show you how this works, and I really think you're going to be impressed. Now, incidentally, Wiebe Knives is the website, and you can buy these products in bulk or the kit itself, and you're going to be on your road to having some skulls that you're proud of. Thanks, and enjoy the show.
Thank you again for buying our skull bleaching kit. Before we degrease and whiten this skull, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to get the meat off the skull. There's a few different ways you can do it. We found that maceration is the easiest, most user-friendly way. But you can boil a skull like this here that's got the meat still on it, just in an old turkey pot or whatever you have. It takes a little bit longer, and you need to work off the meat with a coarse brush and a knife, and just periodically check on it as it's boiling. It's really important not to overcook it, because you can actually crack the skull and ruin the form of the actual bone itself. The other is with beetles. They're called dermestide beetles. Works really well if you have a containment system for it, and that's large enough to put a deer skull in, something with antlers, or depending on what animal or what skull you're trying to whiten. So we're going to talk about maceration. Very simple, like I said. It's simply a process of bacteria breaking down the meaty tissue that's on a skull. For the sake of this one here, I have a bobcat skull. It's just come out of the freezer, and it's got a lot of meat on it. It's faster if you remove as much of that as you can when it's thawed, but it'll still work just as fine. So we'll talk about that here. So what I have here is just a 5-gallon bucket with just regular old tap water in it. It doesn't need to be a certain temperature. I'm just going to go ahead and submerge it the way that you see it. And then we're going to put a lid on it. The important part about this is to make sure that it's not airtight. There's a lot of gases that build up, and you could have maybe an explosive mess on your hands when you come to check up on it. So we've drilled some holes in the bottom of this here with a little shop towel taped on it. And we're just going to go ahead and push the lid on. Then from here, approximately every 5 to 7 days, you can check up on it, see how that meat is starting to fall off. If you'd like to speed up the process a bit, just work as much of that meat off as you can, remove it from the bucket, put the skull back in, check up on it again another 5 to 7 days. Now, the ideal temperature for rapid bacteria growth for maceration is, from what I've read, 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that's not always feasible. Colder temperatures will still work, just takes a bit longer, maybe 4 or more weeks in colder temperatures. It's a hurry up and wait game from here. We're going to go ahead and store it for a few weeks, and we'll check up on it every 5 to 7 days. Okay, it's been just about a week. We're going to take a look at this bobcat skull, see how the maceration process is coming along. Actually coming along quite well. See all the meat starting to come off. The eye sockets are starting to come apart. You can work some of this meat off to kind of help speed it up a little bit. My Wiebe scalpel knife here is pretty sharp. want to zoom in on that or not, Mark? Oh. Let that sit in there a little longer before we keep cutting this stuff off. But as you can see, there's a week into it almost, and a lot of the meat's already come off. We're just going to put this back in the maceration bucket. We'll check it again another 5 to 7 days. I expect it'll be done probably maybe even next week, but approximately 2 weeks would probably be about 100%. We'll take a look next week and see what we have. Okay. All right, it's been about 3 weeks since we've had this bobcat skull macerating in the bucket. We're going to take a look at it, and I would assume that it's probably ready to start degreasing now. So let's open up the lid. All slopping off. A few teeth missing, so I'll have to, unfortunately, find those little teeth at the bottom of the bucket. Just push off the best you can with your fingers. You can use a knife, just being careful not to nick the skull. But when we degrease this, it's going to work that stuff that's still sticking on slightly. Could leave it in another week if you wanted, but not necessary. Now I'm gonna go hunt for some teeth. I'd pour this stuff somewhere where your neighbors, your friends, your family aren't gonna smell it. It's extremely foul. Okay, so once you gently pour all that juice out, you see all the teeth here at the bottom. And there's a bunch of smaller ones that are still in a little pool of water down here at the bottom, but we're going to put these aside. And we'll put these aside, and then I'm going to throw them into the degreasing bucket as well once we start boiling, which we'll talk about shortly. So now that we're finished macerating, we're going to start degreasing the bobcat skull. So we have our degreasing formula. There's 16 fluid ounces in this, and for one skull you could get by with less than half that. But we're going to do 5 gallons of water to 8 ounces of our degreasing solution. We'll get our burner started. Five gallons of water. going to wait until this starts to boil. Once it's boiling, I'm going to reduce the heat, add the degreasing solution, and then we'll place the skull and the teeth into the pot. Okay, so we brought our 5 gallons of water to a boil. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down to a low simmer, and then we'll add our degreasing solution. I'm going to do half of this, which would be 8 ounces. About 8 ounces. Just go ahead and place the skull in the pot, the teeth. Really small. And now we're going to wait approximately 60 minutes. I'll probably check it every 20 minutes or so. I'm going to turn this down a bit. About perfect right there. Okay, we're gonna pull the skull out and see how it looks. These are coming off nicely. All that meat just kind of slops off. Should be ready to go here in another 20 to 30 minutes. Quick note, to save yourself some propane, just throw a lid on top of your boiling container. You can also block the wind off to the side. It'll add up over time. We're going to take a look at this bobcat skull and see if it's done. I would expect that it likely is. It's been 1 hour since we started. Yeah, I'd say it's in good shape. The ideal concentration you want to use is a 5-to-1 dilution ratio, upwards of 15 to 1 at a maximum. And the trick I found is to find a container that's as close to fit, as close to size as the skull that you're going to put it into. Now you could find one smaller than that, but this is what we have here at the shop. So I'm going to do a 5-to-1. I'm going to put the skull in. I'm going to, not sure what that hole is called, but I'm going to put it facing upward so that when you pour it in, it actually reaches in all those little cavities. If you go this way, you'll find that it'll float. It captures air up inside the skull cavity. Teeth and everything. So one of those, I'm going to fill it up 5 times with water. Okay, so for larger skulls, say something like an elk or a white-tailed deer, mule deer, whatever, you can go upwards of a 15-to-1 dilution ratio. Again, like I said, try and find a container that's as fit to size as possible, and it really varies from here how long it takes to get desired whiteness. And could be as little as 24 hours. I've seen coyote skulls that have more grease in their jowls and in their jaw bones that take upwards of 5 to 7 days. Raccoons are extremely greasy, badger, again, they'll take about a week, maybe even longer than that. I wouldn't leave it in any longer than 2 weeks. You'll start to ruin the integrity of the skull and you'll find defects in it. It'll start to flake away at the bone. So that's that. We're going to check it every day until the desired whiteness is achieved, and it's pretty simple. Alright, we're 24 hours into having the bobcat skull submerged into our whitening solution. We're going to take it out and take a look here. I can tell it's whitened quite a bit already. The true test is to put it in direct sunlight for a few hours because that whitening solution has penetrated the skull, the bone, quite a bit, and as it dries, you'll see that it'll continue to whiten. So we're going to put it over here in direct light. And we'll come back in a few hours and you'll notice a night and day difference. Okay, so we've taken the bobcat skull out of our whitening solution and let it dry for approximately 24 hours. And now we're going to go ahead and glue the teeth in place. Some of these teeth are pretty small, so you might want to just size them up first before you start putting glue and it dries on you and you realize you put the tooth in the wrong hole. So I'll go ahead and pull these out systematically so I know what order they go back in. These premolars are loose, but they're not going to come out. They just never fell out during the maceration or degreasing process, so you can leave them in place. Okay, so I'll start with the molars. They're very small. Tucked back in the corners here. I'm going to go and just drip a little bit of glue in each hole.
Is that Elmer's glue?
Yeah, and this is just standard Elmer's glue. If you put a little too much in, just go back around with a paper towel after when you put the teeth in place and soak it up. Doesn't help that I have shaky hands. The other molar. We'll do the canine teeth next. And then the incisors. And I'm missing one tooth. I don't know if I poured it out during the degreasing process, but I'm not going to. That's that. You can see how much whiter that is than when we first started. And I'll let this dry, and it's done. It's missing the bottom jaw because in South Dakota, you have to turn in the bottom jaw to a game fish and parks officer. Otherwise, it would be a complete skull, but that's what we're finished with there. All right, teeth are glued in place. Again, just the standard Elmer's glue. Let it dry for a day. And now, this is an optional step. I use a clear gloss polyurethane that helps seal the skull. It will give it a bit of a shiny look to it, so that's why it's optional. Some people might like it dull, like you see here. But I'll show you how I do this. Just lightly kind of mist and touch it up. That's about it. If you really soak it with the polyurethane, you'll find drip marks and bubbles when they dry. So That's why it's important just to mist it from about 8 to 10 inches away from the skull. Okay, thank you again for buying our skull bleaching kit. This wraps up our demonstration on how to use our kit. Unlike peroxide solutions, these are more dependable. Results won't vary, and it's less toxic to the actual bone itself. Our ingredients both are whitening and our degreasing solution. You can pour into your sink, you can pour on the ground. They're biodegradable, all natural ingredients. It's 3 simple steps. Remember to macerate, degrease, and then whiten.